going on, New York Jets fans? Welcome into the Jets Report. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about the Harrison Phillips trade that went down between the Minnesota Vikings and the New York Jets yesterday, and why I would consider this highway robbery from the Jets front office. Harrison Phillips, a veteran, run-stuffing defensive tackle, that perfect archetype of player that you would want next to Quinnen Williams. So we'll dive into that. Then also later on the show, is another move coming for the New York Jets. Now, we talked about that Dianna Russini report yesterday, but I wanted to dive back into it and really determine if we're going to see 3 Jets trades before the start of the season. I have my doubts, but we'll talk about that on the second half of today's show. But speaking about the trades yesterday, Jets picking up 2 new defensive tackles. Obviously, that was a massive position of need for this ball club. If you're fired up about it, hit that thumbs up icon. Like today's show. Let's see if we can get, call it 400 likes. That'd be pretty cool. So hit that thumbs up button if you guys haven't already. Now let's dive into Harrison Phillips. I will say this off the front. Jets fans, you guys are going to love this guy. He is great for the community. He is great in the locker room. He's just a vibes guy, a sure veteran, and I think the Jets kind of got him for a steal. Obviously, you had to attach 2 6th-round picks, but is that really too much to give up for a solid player in the NFL? And also the Vikings are eating $3.4 million of his $7 million salary. So that's more good news. And, you obviously got another 7th-round pick there that could be dealt for a future trade potentially. But I think the Jets just got great value here. Whatever you think of Harrison Phillips, obviously he is not going to have a needle-moving season by any means where it's like, oh, we got Harrison Phillips. The Jets could have the best defense in the league. But it definitely raises their floor, especially the run defense. So I just think overall you got great value. And Harrison Phillips, he played a pretty big role in the Vikings defense this last season. That was a top 5 unit in the league. Obviously, Brian Flores, he asked a lot of his defensive tackles. He asked them to 2-gap a lot, where Harrison Phillips, he'll just be up against an offensive guard or a center, and you got to play both gaps. That's a tough role, and he did that at a pretty high level this past season. That's why he's a perfect guy next to Quinnen Williams, because you think about this Jets defensive line, Harrison Phillips, he's going to get the 4th most attention out of all 4 guys they have down on the line of scrimmage, and him playing that more, condensed role I think will be great for him. And just next to Quinnen Williams, having a sure thing like Harrison Phillips, where he's not going to try to do too much, he's not going to do too little. I think that's the perfect piece next to a superstar defensive tackle, which Quinnen Williams obviously is. And also, Jets fans, I'm sure you guys remember this last year, Harrison Phillips had a pretty sweet sack on Aaron Rodgers. He completely schooled the offensive guard, got right around him, and he had a sweet play on Rodgers. So hopefully that makes you guys feel a little better about this pickup. But I do want to show the PFF grades here, because I saw some people, on Twitter saying oh, Harrison Phillips is kind of cooked and everything, and it's just because of the PFF grades. Obviously, he did not grade out incredibly well, 58.8 overall, 103rd in the pass rush, 103 in the run defense as well. But he also played majority of snaps for that Vikings defense, and honestly, I think PFF did a pretty bad job evaluating him and what he did this past season, because especially him in the run defense, him getting a 54.0 overall grade, I think that's a little ludicrous. But that's just what PFF thinks. And, I mentioned this at the top of the show. Phillips is just a solid player. And he's going to be great for the locker room. Producer Dylan said, he's a typical Aaron Glenn guy. And that's who he is. He's all about football. He's going to get those young guys in the right spots. And he's just going to bring good energy to this group. And, the Jets had a need at that defensive tackle position. We've talked about it this whole offseason. Who's going to be that guy next to Quinnen Williams? We thought it was going to be Derek Nottie, but now he's probably going to get cut. And now you bring in a true starter. It's not Juwan Briggs, for example, who the Jets also traded for. That's kind of a high upside play. We were hoping he'll eventually develop into Harrison Phillips, but Phillips is a surefire thing. He'll be impactful right away, week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I thought this was a fantastic move. And let's show him some love down below in the comments section. Welcome Harrison Phillips back to the AFC East. He started his career with the Buffalo Bills. So he's back in the division. And let's type his jersey number. Type those 97s down below in the comment section. All right, coming up next here on the show, will the Jets be trading for a wide receiver? A lot of reports are out there, but I have my doubts. I think the Jets may be done, but we'll talk about that here in a second. But before we do so, this episode of the Jets Report is brought to you by Prize Picks. Now, preseason football is underway, and college football is here. So don't miss any of the action this season on Prize Picks. And if you guys download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS, we'll get you guys $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. PrizePicks is also the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. And PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. PrizePicks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. Now, they also have a free square for you guys. Week 1 of the football season, we're one Dak Prescott passing yard. We get you guys one win on PrizePicks, so make sure you guys include this into all of your lineups. I already have, so make sure you guys download the PrizePicks app and take advantage of this deal. And if you guys also download the app today and use promo code CLNS, we'll hook you guys up with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. With code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. A massive shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's show. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, let's talk about the Dianna Russini report that dropped yesterday morning. We did a video on it yesterday, but obviously with the trades, it kind of got lost in the shuffle there. But she did tweet this out. The Jets are among several teams monitoring the trade market for potential wide receiver addition per sources. The 49ers and Vikings are also making calls. Now, I understand we got this report. Dianna, pretty credible insider, but I have my doubts that the Jets actually make a move for a wide receiver. I just don't really think out there is a perfect fit for this ball club because obviously the Jets want to be a run-first, defensive-minded team. So them trading for some defensive tackles, like that made a whole lot of sense to me. But are they willing to give up draft capital to get a second wide receiver when they do have some solid second options? Like none of the guys, like besides Garrett Wilson, you could say are like, they're true wide receiver twos. But, the combination, in the aggregate of like Josh Reynolds, Tyler Johnson, Allen Lazard, Arian Smith, like that's enough to fill the 2 and 3 spot. But if you are going to trade for some guys, I got 5 targets. Number 1 on my list would be Alec Pierce. Now, Alec Pierce, I think, is one of the most underrated players in the National Football League. Great deep threat. And, with the Colts turning the keys of the franchise over to Daniel Jones, I don't really think he has a need in Indianapolis anymore, and his stats are just ridiculous. Like this past season, averaging 22.3 yards per catch. That's unreal stuff, going for just over 820 yards. But also the kicker with Alec Pierce here, you're probably going to have to give up a premium draft pick for him. Like it would probably go for a 3rd, 4th round pick. And then you're also going to have to pay him. And he'll probably want around $15 to $18 million per year, which, at that price tag, that's fine for a wide receiver too. But again, with the position the Jets are in, I just don't think that it makes too much sense for him. But Alec Pierce could be an option. And a guy that makes absolutely zero sense, and, he'll probably stay in Washington, Terry McLaurin. Obviously we want that Ohio State connection, but, scary Terry, it just doesn't make sense for the Jets. Like I was saying, you want to be a defensive-minded, run-first team. Are you going to pay 2 wide receivers $32+ million per year? Absolutely freaking not. And Terry wants DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson money. So I just don't really think it makes too much sense for the Jets to bring him in. So you have to give up a premium draft pick for him as well. So I think this has 0% chance of happening. Now, another guy I would like here is Jacoby Myers. Like, if you're trying to fit that ideal wide receiver 2 mold on this Jets roster, like, I think Jacoby fits into that. But again, the kicker with Jacoby is you're going to have to give up a 3rd round pick for him, and you're going to have to pay him $18 to $20 million per year. So the Jets in the position they are, is that what you want to do? Like, do you want to give up a draft pick when you're still, it's not like a rebuild going on. It's more of like a retool. I just don't think they're in a position to trade draft picks for a receiver. Like, take the New Orleans Saints, one of the worst teams in the National Football League. They just gave up a 4th round pick for Vele, which makes absolutely 0 sense. But obviously Myers better than Vele, and he would make more of an impact than the Jets. Are obviously a better football team than the Saints, but I still think the point stands is, do you want to be trading draft picks for a guy who, he's a fine receiver. He would be a great wide receiver too, but I just don't think the Jets are in the position to do that. Now, if you want to take a flyer on a guy where you're banking on him, really developing into being a pretty damn good wide receiver too, it would be Christian Watson. Now, Christian Watson is coming off that torn ACL, so he probably won't be ready until about week 8, 9, or 10 of this upcoming season. And he's definitely got red flags, a lengthy injury history. He also has had drop issues throughout his entire career, and he's put up, decent numbers in limited action. But I just don't think this is a move that's, on the table for the Jets really whatsoever. And, he would just kind of like, it's not like he would fix the problem. Like, I still think we would be talking about the wide receiver 2 position in the aggregate, where we're like, okay, now we got 5 guys who could potentially be wide receiver 2. So, Christian Watson, probably pass on him. And I'm also passing on Adam Thielen. Thielen, he'll probably return to the Minnesota Vikings. At least the latest rumors out there are suggesting that. But like, he's a fine wide receiver, but doesn't make sense for the Jets. Like, the Jets aren't going to compete for a Super Bowl this year. Thielen clearly wants to, go and play for a contender, and I just don't really think it's the best fit. Now, Thielen is a very good run blocker, so maybe if the Jets are like, hey, this guy could be a high end or a middle of the pack wide receiver too, but a high end run blocker at that position, then maybe they would head in the direction of Adam Thielen. But I just don't really think it makes too much sense for the Jets to add another wide receiver. But maybe you guys disagree with me. Should the Jets add another wide out? Give me a Y for yes or give me an N for no down below in the comment section. Easy answer to this, Mason Taylor. He'll be your wide receiver too. Then you have the rest of the guys following suit. But you guys let me know your thoughts down below. Appreciate you guys watching today's show. See you guys next time. Go Jets.